Obviously, but it looks like it's going to be besides rain,
Oh, good.
almost up to
Hello.
70.
Okay. The time. Oh, okay. The time is now 6 o'clock. Today is April 2nd, 2024, and I'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Stevens, will you please call the attendance? Here.
Mr. Miggins? Here.
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Thomas? Here. All board members are accounted for at the forum and can continue.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time, I will take a motion for the approval of the agenda.
The agenda.
Moved by Mr. Maines,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Thompson. All right, is there any discussion? Wait,
No.
anybody?
I just
Yes, ma'am.
wanted to clarify, so the Neola updates, this is only the first read, there's not any approval at this meeting,
Yes,
correct?
that is correct, ma'am.
Thank
That is
you.
correct. Yeah, and I think we'll go over the policies too and discuss those. Okay, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote.
Yes.
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 Yes? Yes.
Okay, motion passes. The agenda is approved. All right. The first discussion, new business, is depository agreements. A motion for approval of the 5-year depository agreement with the following bank institution, Monroe Federal Savings Bank and Loan, located at 24 East Main Street, Tipp City, Ohio. Do I have a motion for the approval of the 5-year depository agreement?
I'll move.
Moved by Mrs. McMurray,
I'll second.
seconded by Mrs. Dillard. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to say that we're doing this as part of the Ohio Vice Code. We have depository agreements with Park National Bank, and so we can do one as well for this. With Monroe.
All right, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote.
McMurray,
Yes.
Dillard,
Yes?
Drum,
Yes.
Maines,
Yeah.
Thompson.
Yes.
All right, motion passes for the approval of the 5-year depository agreement with the following bank institution, Monroe Federal Savings Loan. Next is discussion items. Neola 42.2 Winter 2024 Policies Update. This is our first read.
So this is every 6 months we get an update. We'll have a fall update and a winter update, and this is our second one. A lot of it's just language tweaks, nothing major. We met with Norm Bogart, who is the rural representative. He's been representing this with the park for years. So Amber and I met with him, Dave as well.
I missed most of this one.
I think you were in the back of the last top of
But
it.
we went through it already. There's nothing major. But one of the things that isn't on the update that we added back, well, when I wasn't here, but the previous board in February or March last year made the change for the open enrollment, canceling that, but that policy never got updated. So that's why that's in here now as an update, because it hadn't been updated. The board action a year ago. But we'll just go through here real quick, and if you have any questions, I think everybody's had access to this, and then explain anything major. But even again, 100 definitions, again, it's just some language changes, updates, so and stuff, nothing that puts you to sleep, right?
Yeah.
Nothing major there. The minutes, this is an update from when we did the resolution to not have the readings. So we put the actual date in there so that it references that it was done. So anybody in the future, if they want to change it or have questions about it, it's referenced in our policy so they know we don't have to continue with all the reading minutes. Student assessment and academic intervention, again, just a couple of tweaks based on law, but changing, again, end of course exams from the Ohio graduation test. Just basic added language that clarifies some things, but what we do, nothing important, just updates. Third grade reading guarantee, same stuff, again, backing the reading improvement plans and language that just clarifies it, some updates based on law. Employment of substitutes. So this is what we did the last, when we approved the sub, to be their student intern, the, what do you call it, the student teacher to be the long-term sub for a class that she was doing it in. This law it spells it out that you can be a pre-service teacher, and that qualifies you for a substitute teacher license. So just that makes it permanent to allow us to do that. And it doesn't change anything else in regards to that, but it does allow student teachers to be considered subs. Again, it may be something we want to look at bigger picture in the future, but right now, that's the only change with the employment of substitutes. Termination and resignation, again, just says notice of termination can be by mail or electronic mail or delivery. Again, just updates.
And we clean that up to match our policy within our school.
That if you see it comes up twice here, contracts and compensation, again, talks about notice to be given, certificate of mail, electronic delivery, those things. Termination and resignation, again, just another same thing, just another part. Now, the 51111.04 is the admission of students on a tuition basis. So this is when we have to, every year we have to tell the state what our policy is for open enrollment. Mm-hmm. And part of it was in this policy. You had three options. The option was yes or no, we do not do open enrollment, and we allow tuition. We allow open enrollment with adjacent districts, so that means anybody that any school district touches our district. Or the third option was we do open enrollment for anywhere. So any school district in Ohio could become ours. So obviously the board policy is no enrollment. The other piece we talked about is, do we need to even have tuition consideration? Right now, I think if we're not allowing other people to be in, I think there's really no basis to open it up for tuition. The other piece is, while it's not a hard, fast like law, somebody could come in and pay tuition, but that doesn't necessarily mean it covers cost either.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why we talked about, if we're not going to have open enrollment, why even have a tuition option for there? So we could rescind it and just, it's gone for right now. And if at a later time people wanted to bring it back, that's fine. Again, it's kind of in this policy that it says we do it unless, we vote on it a yearly basis, but we're not interested in it. And I just wanted to put it out there. Amber and I, when we talked with Norm, he's like, yeah, why have a policy if you're not going to utilize it?
Yeah.
So what are people's thoughts on the tuition basis?
Well, I agree. It doesn't make sense to have it in there if we're not going to have open enrollment. So why even have it there?
Now, tuition is set by the state, and it's like $8,300. But again, it doesn't necessarily guarantee it covers the cost of educating a student.
And is that across the board, 8,300? No.
It's by school district.
Every school district has assigned by the state, and that's about $8,300.
$83.98.
If we don't have open enrollment, then what's a scenario in which this policy would apply otherwise?
Well, so this means that we would accept kids from outside the district as long as they paid us the money.
Okay.
They would pay the state rate. That means they could come to our district.
But it's also only if there's room, correct?
Well, I would say in the past, that was part of the issue, I think, with open enrollment, is that if you don't have limits, you don't set expectations of class sizes and openings and things like that, that's where, you know, it may not behoove you to do open enrollment. It may cost you more. You know, it's one thing if, let's say you have 100 kids, right? In a 200, or let's just use 200 kids. 200 kids in the class, right? So let's say that's 8 teachers at the elementary school. So every class is 25 kids. Okay, you're getting the money and that's the class size, you set those expectations. What happens if you have 110 kids? Or 210, because you get 10 more kids. Do you just disperse them so now there's 27 or 26, 27 in the class? Or do you add another teacher? And your open enrollment is going to give you $2,600 per kid. 26 times 10 is $26,000. That's not paying for a teacher. So you need to have those things set if you want to do that. And let's say you only have 175 kids in the class. Well, we have 8 teachers. Let's bring in 25 kids. That doesn't necessarily cover the teacher's cost either. So you have to manage that. And right now, that's not where we're at. I think we need to, as we'll get to here shortly, we need to right size to what we have. Then we can figure out what might be beneficial to us in the future, but not right now.
Makes sense.
So in the current policy, it says that on or before March 31st, that
So we'd asked, sorry,
thus past that date. So where are we with that?
It just, if we rescinded, it's rescinded and
Okay.
it's gone.
yeah, and we asked Norman about that too, because when we got rid of open enrollment, it was the assumption kind of based in the other policy that this didn't exist either because it kind of like blanketed
All
each other. Yeah.
There's some overlap and
Yeah.
the board decides what, if they want to, I sent you the ORC code. It says a Board of Education may admit to its school a child not required by section if tuition is paid for the child. So we don't have to. I think the questions I had to answer in open enrollment, I think they should have another. We don't allow open enrollment and we don't allow tuition because it's not predicated, but I think people think it as the same. They're still bringing people from the outside their school district in.
When was the last time we had students here for tuition-based enrollment?
I think we've had 1 or 2 when I was here my first tenure. But I'm aware of no tuition students right now.
We haven't at least in 2 years. When we joined the board, there was no.
I think most people would have obviously used open enrollment to come in and not cost them anything.
And before, open enrollment was only adjacent school districts, right?
Correct.
Boundary school districts.
Which is why someone would probably use the tuition way if they weren't an adjacent school. They would come from.
Just checking because I should know, and I've read it enough, but Ohio Choice doesn't have anything to do with this, correct?
No.
Okay. Just for confirmation.
And this tuition has been set by the state ever since I've been here. Again, I think with the options of all the vouchers and open enrollment and choice, I don't think this is utilized a whole lot here.
Thank you.
And then the intra-district doesn't really apply to tip schools because we don't have more than one school.
Correct.
We don't have 2 high schools or middle schools.
And that's why that just adds the bottom at the end. Everything else is being deleted.
Except for that.
Just the bottom, the Board of Education shall not allow students from other school districts to enroll in the program. Now, you're talking about the intra-district.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, intra, yes. Inter-district is the one that we're updating, so we're just not allowing it. Intra-district if we had multiple, like we did, I don't know, a few years, but we used to have the kids, you know,
Yeah,
north of Maine, south, right?
Yeah.
They could, you had needed this policy to sign those things, but we don't
have that.
have that issue, but we still need to have it. It's a policy that's recommended.
Got it.
So those are added kind of together. They're all, again, same calls, things. Health services, 5310, again, talks about concussion and provision of feminine hygiene products. Transportation, this really had to do with, instead of having vans and things like this, it's vehicles other than school buses, just some minor language that, and again, some permanent disabled versus some language there. It's being altered, but it doesn't change anything. Bus driver certification, again, it just talks about having the same thing, the driver versus she and her, just updates in language. Transportation, again, these are all just some very updates, nothing major that does it for the last ones. Again, overall, public for people to see, draft, and then after the second reading, approval. But just, to me, just whether we want to rescind the tuition piece or not, that's really the only one that's, I think, had a question on. Right. Might have just moved forward and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you for answering all my questions.
All
I like
right.
the little bubble thing on there.
Right.
I can write my questions down
Yeah,
at a time
yeah,
and then I take it.
yeah. I love having the bubble. Okay. So we're all done with. Is there any more discussion on the NOLA? Everybody good? Okay. Moving on. Mr. Moran, discussion item is superintendent recommendations.
Okay. So, as we talked about in November when we, before this board, after the election, we're in a deficit spending right now of $3.6 million for this fiscal year. $1 million of that is the additional payments because of the self-insurance plan that was here until October of 2023, before we switched to the EPC, that we were not collecting the funds needed to
Cover
make
it.
the payouts for the self-insurance plan. Obviously, it's something that has to be taken care of. We're required to pay those costs for the health insurance plans. But that's $1 million of it. The other 2.6 is a structural, spending and revenue issue that we need to deal with. On that 5-year forecast, you see we run out of money pretty fast. We don't change it. You see that the general accounting has some recommendations. Again, I think a 90-day cash on hand to weather any issues. 100 days is probably, ideal, which is roughly around 8 million, 8.5 million. And I think we need to protect the district financially to do those things. So after looking into this evaluation or the forecast and looking at our programs and looking at the various class sizes, opportunities for kids, I'm recommending that we need to make reductions in staff and some spending as well in order to be fiscally responsible. That would include the reductions, would include 18.5 certified positions, 2 administrative positions, 6 classified positions. I'd ask for a reduction in my salary as well as $10,000. And I know this decision and recommendation is not fun, but it's necessary. If we don't make cuts now, this problem balloons and we run out of funds quicker. And when that happens, we lose opportunities. We lose out the ability to provide increased opportunities for kids. We've looked at a lot of different things. Again, class sizes, K-12, there's opportunities for that. And we think there's, without harming student options and class sizes not going to balloon, we think we can make those things happen and add additional things that kids and families want, such as makerspace at the elementary school, keeping the resource officers, keeping the counseling numbers where they're at, in addition to options at the high school, such as world languages, leadership, theater classes, things there. We've added some CCP classes, College Credit Plus classes at the high school as well. We think we can continue to do those, but we have to look at the big picture too with that. And again, enrollment and grades, increasing cost, and our limited state funding because of how we're viewed in the funding pattern with property wealth and median and income. We get about $2,600 per kid.
Yeah.
And the rest has to be rated local. Or some other schools, you know, if you're not valued, if your value is a lot lower on that list, you're getting the full or closer to the full $8,000 per kid from the state. So again, we're mindful of the class sizes, student schedules, elective offerings. We know it's going to be a challenge, but we're committed to the success and well-being of our students, and this is part of it. Along with the recommendation, you know, thankfully the community supported the passing of the bond levy on the 19th, and with that, Nevin Coppic would be shuttered for construction purposes, and I recommend that we shutter it for next year as well. It doesn't make sense to deal with investing any money into that building and paying the things that need to be fixed there or just repaired to keep it going. So again, I recommend that we do that. We move our kids, K1 to kindergarten, first and second grade students to Broadway. So that becomes the K1, 2 building, and LT Ball will become 3, 4, 5. So it's going to help us with flexibility during the construction process. Obviously, having a place for construction traffic away from kids, away from parent and event traffic. And then it also improves our operational efficiencies with the one less building. And the other facilities can handle those, some minor alterations. What questions might people have?
I have a couple questions. Number one, I looked through all the numbers and it looked like, natural progression of numbers with, rising inflation. Number one, what kind of inflation did you build into it? Like 2% or 3% or?
Inflation for what?
On the five.
Forecast?
Yes, yeah.
I can't remember what we put in there. I want to say that expenditures are increasing by 4%.
4%.
Yeah.
It varies by.
But it varies by what type of expenditure it is. But in the forecast itself and in the assumptions, it does state what type of or what escapes me. Yes, the increases that are being used by the line items.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that inflation was factored in, which I'm sure it is.
For insurance and for payroll,
Utilities and everything else. And so, and then it looked like the biggest drop in the revenue was 3 years down the road in the general property taxes.
Yeah. And that's because the current, there's one of our emergency levies that will go off of the books. It will no longer be collected. And I can't show that as revenue in the top of the forecast. However, if you go to the bottom of the
So
forecast,
we aren't going to get it, is what it boils down to.
well, you'll see at the bottom of the forecast, we can show anticipation of renewal of the levy that we have.
That's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a spot where you can project new levies or renewal levies. They're shown
I see it.
separately.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the cash balance down there,
Expected.
yes, includes an expected renewal. However, the results that came from the March 19th levies, I received a report, and the renewal levy passage this year, March 19th, was not as good as it has been in previous years. More renewal levies were rejected
Mhm.
than they've seen in a long time. I think it was even less than back in 2008.
Mhm.
But so renewal levies are not guaranteed.
Mhm.
So we have to show that there is a renewal levy down in our plans
Mhm.
for the future. So in case that is not renewed, we have to be prepared for it.
Mhm. The 3 years out looks bad enough, but then that
The
fourth year,
4 was what I mean, that,
8 million in the hole.
that is like, when I saw between 3 and 4, I like got my calculator out. I was like, I'm sorry, what?
So we're still working on the budget forecast for the May update. With the changes that Mr. Moran is recommending and also trying to find other spots for savings, there is about an $8 to $12 million swing. So what is your 2028 anticipated negative cash balance at the very bottom of the page? What does that show? About negative $8 or $9 million?
8.7, about 8.8, yeah.
With the changes to the forecast right now that we're looking at, it takes us to a positive $3.5 million.
Okay.
So these changes do compound. If you were to change your payroll now, that changes your payroll 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, if that position is cut and not replaced, or if you bring it in down in
Later.
the future, bring it back. But those numbers compound on each other. And so making changes now to try to save $2 million helps in the future years.
Okay.
Just
When
a quick follow-up, sorry. Does these changes ensure that we are solvent beyond?
Unfortunately, these changes do not stop us from being in deficit spending. Every year, you will still see revenues not exceeding expenditures. And so the current cash balance that we have will continue to be reduced over time.
Mhm.
And so we can show the next 5 years that we end still with a positive cash balance, but year 6, year 7, those would be showing negative balances if these trends were taken out that far. I don't know what's going to happen to the state budget because the state budget's approved every 2 years. And so that could have a significant change. I mean, in 2020, the schools had seen a $6,000 flat revenue for all of the students for like 6 years in a row. It was always still like 6,000. Of course, at Tipp City, we weren't seeing 6,000 a student, like Mr. Moran said earlier. We see a much lower number because of our wealth index that they use. But we did see a change in the foundation formula when they went to the Fair School Funding Plan. Now, the Fair School Funding Plan was a 6-year plan to be phased in, but its success is based on every 2 years, the state saying, yes, let's continue to do it. Let's continue to do it. We're only halfway through the phase in of that plan, and they could turn around at in the next budget process and say, you know what, we're going to stop funding it this way. We've got a new plan. And so
with these recommendations, do we put ourselves in a position to guard against those things should they come our way in the future beyond this forecast? Some of these common sense, it seems.
This can start to level it out.
Yeah.
I think we have to look at it. I think we have some things going for us that can help us, especially again, look, 3.25 years down the road with the new building. Expenses of putting money into old buildings to keep them going, the efficiencies there that we can get by consolidation, and as well as, I think, looking at property values and how they're going up, that can help us down the road, but we need to make these cuts now to at least give us a chance to remain fiscally stable.
Yeah.
My biggest fear, so Tipp City, I think the last new money, besides this bond issue that just passed, the last new money levy that we had was an emergency levy in 2015, which was greatly needed by the district. But my fear is that we go the way of Milton Union, where their last new money, besides a building, was 2003. And they're struggling to provide new operating money for their district.
Yeah.
Over 20 years now with no new money. And with the economy the way it is, and with the passage of the levies, well, I should say the non-passage of many levies that occurred on March 19th, I'm not seeing levy passages here in the future. And so we just need to, as Mr. Moran said, just try to be fiscally responsible for what we have. And the thing that we can control are the expenditures.
Yeah.
The revenues, we don't really have control. I mean, that's property taxes, and that's the state. When you're budgeting those out, you can get pretty dang close every year based, if you know what the formulas are, you can project those, and they're not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
It's the expense side that we have the most control on, the most control over. So
I think too, it's important to note that bond thing that we just passed has nothing to do with the revenue covering these expenses.
correct. The bond
is for the buildings.
yes. There's no operational money.
Hopefully, as you did point out, the efficiency that we get by having one building instead of 5, well, 2 buildings, I should say, instead of 5, it's going to help on the operating side, but we just don't know how much.
Yeah.
So
I do know that energy expenses, Milton Union with their new building that they built, it's now 11 years old, but they're the lowest operating cost building in the state of Ohio with their energy costs. I mean, it was, when I was there, it was about 46 cents a square foot, somewhere in the 40s. I know it's gone up some with the increase in expenses or an increase in utilities recently, but we're nowhere near that with the buildings that we currently have right now. And so there's definitely just energy gains that we can make, energy savings that we can use.
Do you have anything?
No, it's always really difficult, the major expense of any school district is personnel. It's probably 80% of the budget, right?
Yep, most school districts it fall between 75 and 80% for salaries and benefits.
So, that's a difficult thing. We are going to see savings if Nevin is closed. We will see savings in energy bills and maintenance, right?
Well, I'm anticipating.
Not a lot, but.
We calculated about $100,000 in utility costs in Nevin at the moment, right now. If we're not using it, I'm estimating a $50,000 savings, but we still you can't just cut it off. We'd still have to leave things on.
Right.
It's once it's demolished that the full savings will be realized. So I'm currently budgeting a $50,000 savings in utility costs with the closure of Nevin.
Wasn't the number beyond, sorry, Rick, wasn't the number beyond demolition though somewhere in the neighborhood of like $700,000 or something? Did I hear that somewhere?
Yeah, if you go into the estimates of the demolition and abatement,
Right.
it's probably around there, yeah.
Okay.
And do we have any other sources that we could possibly get additional monies through federal grants or state grants? There's
potential more funding. I know that Dr. Tuttlehuff has done a lot with reaching out and finding smaller grants that are offered through the state, but those are usually more project specific or program specific. It's not anything that would cover what we're currently doing to help supplement, or to help supplant what we're currently spending. ESSER money was something that was brought in for every school district here in Ohio, and people have been relying on that for doing extra things. But those monies are now, they're done. They need to be.
Is that the COVID money?
That was COVID. Yeah, I mean, we received well over $1 million in COVID funding, which we put into updates at the buildings. Was it a boiler, or I can't remember what was replaced? It's $200,000 for a boiler. We bought a lot of computer supplies for the students, other equipment and things. But what people are realizing now is that ESSER money is going away. Some districts put that into operational expenses for new staff members, and now they're making the decisions of whether they try to keep those staff and pay them with general funds or have to cut them. The one that I'm very well aware of, I think Trotwood Schools brought in like 20 new staff, maybe more. There was lots of new staff that was brought in, and that money's done. So
Right, there's no
we
sustainability.
did not focus on a lot on new staff. So
And I think that's
Thankfully.
the question that you have to look at when you're looking at grants. Sometimes they'll front it for a year or two, and then they say you got to sustain it for X amount of years. Now you're committing resources that you may not
Be able to have long-term.
have.
And so we do receive a consolidated grant fund, Title I, Title II, special ed money. That's what all the school districts receive. There are competitive grants, but you don't see districts like us receiving a lot of those competitive grants because of the financial
Yeah.
where we find ourselves. So I wrote a grant for, when I was working at Oakwood, I wrote a grant once, and the treasurer was like, "You go right ahead, Mr. Stevens, you write that grant." Knowing that we weren't going to get it.
Yeah.
But, we tried. But,
Well, I know that we're struggling with 2.5, but there are other districts with much greater. I said something to Mr. Moran about Mount Healthy. What was it, 27 million or so?
I think it was 80 staff members.
80
80
staff
staff
members.
And your that covers roughly almost 800,000 for abatement demo. Comes out of that building bond passage.
And to keep it open, it needs a new roof too, right?
It's we got a quote again. This is probably a year and a half old.
Yes.
700,000
It was 700,000.
to
Redo it.
repair a roof, not necessarily fix it. Repair it.
Is there temporary measures that we can take to get us through until demolition?
We're just trying to, we believe
Yeah.
that we can close it at the end of the school year and make all of these changes before the next school year.
Okay.
So 2 more months.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Are there other opportunities for, with the reduction in staff, other opportunities for people who might want to retire or
So
buy out, or I'm just,
one of the things that we need to do, probably do an MOU on, and I've had this initial conversations is extending, and that was something the board would need to do as well, extending the deadline that we had in place for the 7th on March 1st. With this new information, that we would extend it to maybe April 20th to see if there's anybody that would like to, given what's going to happen, would they say now's the time to retire, that happens. Obviously, that would be the preference in regards to reductions would be by, attrition versus reduction in force. So that's something that, I think we can do. But that, again, I'd look for that for the April 23rd
And there wouldn't be it wouldn't be a penalty or anything like that. They would still get all of their.
We just have a one-time extension of that, with 2024, March, April 20th or something like that.
Yeah, there's a financial incentive for our employees to let us know that they want to retire at the end of the school year. If they let us know before March 1st, there's an additional calculation to provide additional funding for their severance payout. And so we just want to not hold anybody at bay with that. And so, as Mr. Moran said, we'll extend that out. We have to do an MOU because it's currently in the negotiated agreement with the teachers union. It's currently just policy for the classified staff, but we would just have the board and hopefully the union vote on extending that out further, that deadline, so that everyone that wasn't ready to retire, that might say, I think I'd like to retire, we don't want to hold, not let them get that incentive. So.
Okay, so clarification on that. You said, because I'm writing everything down so I don't forget. So you said that would be to the 20th of April?
As a suggestion.
Okay, but we're not having our meeting until the 23rd. So would we need to do, okay,
Because it's an MOU, that wouldn't necessarily need board approval, but the
Okay.
classified piece with the board policy.
would need, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I clarified it for myself and others who are listening. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All right, at this time, I would take a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of authorized under Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22 G1 to consider the employment of a public employee or official.
I'm sorry, Amber. Were we finished with Mr. Moran's update?
Yeah, because it was just a discussion.
Oh,
Because
There's no motion or anything
yeah, there's
listed.
no.
It's just a discussion.
This is gonna be my recommendation on outgoing boards once we've got those numbers from high school, middle school, we have final numbers for staffing, for student purposes, we'll go through and have to do that process of identifying who might those teachers, be the reduction force, and that would come forward for administrative and classified and certified staff to be approved at a later meeting.
I'm sorry, I thought that there was an update about the OFCC.
No, that, I haven't got we haven't got.
The paper stuff yet.
Okay.
For the RFQ and RFP yet,
Mhm.
so we're waiting on that before.
Yeah, so should be at our next one. No.
Architect, I will say, one of the things that, we're looking to do in the summer, and David might mention this. So through the, some funding, or what do you want to call it? It's pre-apprenticeship stuff, work. There's groups out there that help. And if you do go through certain avenues with them, one's called Sochi that came and did some stuff. They'll actually reimburse you for costs. And one of the things that we're looking to do this summer is actually have maybe like up to maybe 3 high school students become IT workers to help out with summer work, that we would pay them X amount of dollars. We would go through a process to select those kids, but then we would get reimbursed 100% of cost up to 200 working hours, $8,000.
It's $5,000
per kid.
per student worker. And if you were to pay a rate of $15 an hour, it's like 333 hours of work for that one person. They also have a program for custodial work, maintenance work for the summer. So some schools hire summer workers that are students. They have a program that will reimburse half of that cost for the student up to 200 hours. And so I believe that,
Just looking at other ways that might, again, help us and cost, but also provide opportunities for students to get involved with their interests and connect with the school in different ways.
I used the program at Milton Union when I was there last summer. The Milton Union had been paying for summer IT interns for years. And the IT director found this program. It's through the Ohio Department of Education and this second party Strategic Ohio Council for Higher Education. And he brought it to me. I was skeptical at first and said, there's no way somebody's going to give me $5,000 to pay a kid we've been doing this for years anyway. And he said, no, Dave, it's legit. And I found it on ODE's website. We pay in advance. So actually the students, we select the students. Sochi hires them. They're on Sochi's payroll. Sochi will invoice us for the work that the students have done. And then we pay that invoice. And then when the program is over, when the summer is over, everything's tallied up. And then you get a check for everything that's been paid. So, it was a very good program for the IT department at Milton. They actually hired 4 summer interns. And I saw the setup they had in the library as they were imaging all of the Chromebooks. And it was just, what do you call it? It was just like going on an assembly line and with the USB sticks and doing everything. I mean, if you had to stick that on the IT staff over the summer, we have even more computers here. So anyway, it is a good program. If we were to move forward with this, there would be a contract for approval by the board at the April regular board meeting. Once that's in place, then the school district could go forward with putting out notification to students to submit resumes that might be interested to do this type of work.
I work with Sochi, and the executive director is Cassie Barlow. She's a former high-ranking officer in the Air Force, and she's phenomenal. And I have worked with her with STEM internships, and they have agreements with the Ohio Department of Education. It's an excellent program for building workforce in the state, and I'm glad that it's here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Don contacted them first and
Awesome.
said,
Thank
hey,
you, Don.
can we look into this program? And I said,
It's awesome.
seen it.
Yeah,
So it was good.
that's awesome.
Seen it all across the state, and it's really
Yeah,
nice that it's here.
awesome.
They're based out of Beaver Creek,
Yes.
so it's interesting.
Okay. All right. So next is executive session. Again, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose authorized under Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22 G1 to consider the employment of a public employee or official. Official action may follow the executive session.
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Thompson,
I'll second.
second by Mrs. McMurray. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote.
Thompson,
Yes.
McMurray,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Maines.
Yes.
Dillard.
Yes.
Okay. The time is now 6:48. We'll adjourn to executive session.
Representative.
All right, time is now 8 o'clock. There is no official action being taken. We are returning to regular session. All right, next, miscellaneous upcoming meetings. The next regular board meeting will occur on April 23rd at LT Ball Intermediate School, beginning at 6 p.m. The next work session meeting will occur on May 7th, 2024 at the Board of Education, beginning at 6 p.m. At this time, I would take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Dillard,
I'll second.
second by Mrs. McMurray to adjourn the meeting. Mr. Stephens, will you take the roll?
Dillon,
Yes?
McMurray,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Mills.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. The time is now 8:01. Meeting is adjourned.